Hey guys, so a few months ago I started looking into ZBLL recognition systems and comparing them, and I ended up coming up with this system to try to simplify how much stuff you gotta learn to be able to recognize ZBLL, as well as make soon and anti-soon recognition a little bit easier and get some pretty cool side benefits. I call this NCP, which stands for No CP, which is pretty self-explanatory, and so this system does not use CP recognition at all, which probably is what got your attention. To understand what I'm going to talk about, you need to be familiar with the Baum-Harris or BH recognition system, which I'll have a link to my speed solving forum post, which will have links to all the supplementary videos you might want to watch before this, including a video that explains Baum-Harris. But this system is essentially like what Colmac is to QWERTY, to the BH system. It's kind of like a different application of BH. I would consider it an improvement to BH in some regards. It's more like a side grade to BH, but it's a different application of it to try to get some cool benefits, right? So because this is most beneficial, in my opinion, to the soon and anti-soon sets, well, I'll show how this works for soon ZBLL, but you can apply this to the other sets as well. I'm also going to assume you're going to use only one recognition angle for each set, and we'll talk about multi-angle recognition here in a bit. So I'm going to take this cube and set up a soon case, and we're going to use, just to show the angle, and we're going to use this angle with the oriented corner in the UFL position as our soon angle. So let me grab this cube and show you how it works. So I'll do this. So let's say this is our last slot, last layer situation. I'll solve the pair, and then step one of this method, just like BH, is recognize what OCLL set you have and AUF to your recognition angle if that's necessary. So here I would recognize this is a soon ZBLL and do a U2 to get to the angle we decided to recognize soon ZBLL from. So that was step one. And by identifying that this is soon ZBLL, we reduce all the possible cases from 493 to being one of 72 cases. So then the next step, and this is where we start differing from BH, is we're going to look at this UFL corner and what BH pattern is formed around it. So here I recognize this corner is oriented, right? And then I see these two are opposites, and these two are opposites, which looks like an H-perm around this corner. So it looks like H-perm here, because these are opposites and these are opposites. This reduces your case from being 1 out of 72 to being 1 out of 6 cases, because if you look at all the soon ZBLLs from this angle, there are only 6 cases that will have an H-perm like this H-perm-like pattern around this oriented corner, and there's one of those cases for each CP set, which makes sense, right? So here I have set up on these 6 cubes each of the cases that have that H-perm-like pattern around this oriented corner, as you can see. Oops. But these are all different cases. So then the final step is, after we've looked at this corner here, the UFL corner, and identified our BH pattern, we then look at the UFR corner and do BH pattern recognition again. So here I see these two are opposites and these two are opposites. In this case, where if I grab this cube, again, this has the same opposites H-perm-like pattern around this oriented corner. If we look at this misoriented corner, in this case, these are opposites and these are opposites, versus on this one, the BH pattern has these two opposites. These two match. These are adjacent. So I recognize this pattern is different from this pattern around this corner. So that's how I identify which of these 6 different cases you have. And so that's how this system works. It's essentially just double BH, but this edge is shared between the BH recognition of both. So once you recognize this, you don't have to think about what edge is here anymore. You can mostly just look at this other edge and corner for the recognition. And so that's the 3rd step. You can do some other things if you want to try to look into other ways. You can identify which of the 6 cases you have, but I think it makes sense to use double BH because it's pretty easy, and it is going to minimize how much you have to learn, because you only have to learn BH pattern recognition. And like I talk about in my quick BH explain video, you can brute force learn these all the patterns, because like here, if it's oriented, it's pretty easy because it just looks like EPLL. But if you don't want to brute force learn the misoriented patterns, you can just mentally corner twist any misoriented corner. So that's what I did while I was learning, is I would in my mind twist this corner and then see, okay, this is opposite and this is opposite, so this also looks like H perm, to identify the case. Until I twisted it mentally so much, I would see the patterns and be like, these are opposites, these are opposites. And I could identify the case without needing to twist the corner mentally. But in any case, that is my CP-less ZBLL recognition system. The only thing you really have to learn is those BH patterns. So if you can recognize EPLL, you can recognize ZBLL, which is pretty cool. So the pros, you don't need to recognize CP. You have greater consistency with where you're checking compared to BH. So in BH, you have to recognize your CP, and then you look at your BH pattern around whatever corner you choose. But the way you recognize like T's CP, for example, is different from how you recognize like soon CP, for example, or LCP or UCP. So you have different CP recognition for each OCL set. And so because of that, you're looking at different places on the cube, and then you look at the same BH pattern location, right? Versus with this system, I don't have to look around for a different CP stuff. I just look at BH around this corner and then this corner. So whether this was soon, T, UL, HP, whatever, you're always just looking at the BH pattern around your UFL corner and then your UFR corner, or the reverse order if you want. So you have greater consistency with where you're looking across the board. And then learning multi-angle is slightly improved because it relies on knowing your BH pattern for like 2 corners. If you learn the U2 angle, you'll cover the other 2 BH pattern blocks for any given case. And so then you can cover the in-between angles using part of each BH recognition for those cases. So that's nice. And then finally, recognition can be shared across like the different OCL sets depending on which angles you choose. So here, let me get a bigger cube to scale. If we use these angles for soon, T, and L, they all have an oriented corner in the UFL position, and the corner is twisted counterclockwise or anti-clockwise in the UFR position. So LL sticker here, LL sticker here. For this angle of T, LL, LL. And for this angle of L, last layer, stickers are here. So the same patterns would be used to recognize all 3 of these sets if we use these angles for recognition. And you would just have to know that you have soon, T, or L case, ZBLL, which is pretty cool, that you can recognize all 3 of these sets the exact same way, and you can get different coverages too. So if you learn U-set with the headlights here on the front, it also covers H and pi with the headlights on the front, and different things like that. So you can, and there's a bunch of different combinations of angles you can use and learn. So you can look into that and decide what combination of angles you want to learn. And depending on whether you want to use a fixed recognition angle, or if you want to be able to recognize ZBLL from any angle, that will influence what combinations of angles you initially learn to maximize like how quickly you can cover every angle. So keep that in mind. I might make a follow-up video on different angle combination paths you can choose. So yeah. Oh yeah, let's talk about like the cons. There's two cons, kind of, but they're not that big of a deal. So the main one is really that it turns ZBL recognition into three-sided recognition versus like if you use classical or traditional BH, you recognize CP and look at this BH pattern around the UFR corner. So it's done purely from the U layer plus the front and right faces, so it's two-sided ZBL recognition. Versus with this system, it is three-sided because you have to look at the left, right, or left, front, and right faces plus the U layer. So you have to look at an extra face compared to some other systems. But I don't think it's that big a deal since a lot of cubers already use suboptimal recognition systems, including top-level cubers, and use three-sided recognition anyways, so it's not too big of a con. And considering the fact that it consolidates where you're looking into around just two corners, so these 5 pieces always versus looking all around in different places for CP and then the same spot, I feel like that kind of helps compensate for the fact that it's three-sided, because you don't have to use different recognition stuff for different CP for different OCLOs. And then the other thing to note is that the usefulness of this technique does decrease as CP recognition gets easier. So for something like soon or anti-soon, where the CP recognition is more complicated than the other sets, I think this is where this is the best recognition, or it works the best, I should say. Versus like pi, where you recognize it purely from the U layer, the CP, you might be better off just using classical, excuse me, classical BH of recognizing CP and then just checking one BH pattern. But I think the system can work well on its own or in conjunction with traditional BH, depending on how hard CP recognition is. You might want to use this system for soon, anti-soon, maybe L, and then use like traditional BH for TU, HP. Either way, I think it works out. So yeah, so let's wrap this up. I looked around on the forum and like different ZZ sites for any discussions about like CP-less ZBLL recognition, and I didn't find anything. But if this is already proposed somewhere, please drop a comment or a link on the speed solving forum post I'll have linked in the description. I don't want to try to like take credit for something some dude invented a decade ago that I just didn't see a documentation for, which is also why I called this NCP, which is a self-explanatory name, versus trying to put my name on it, because yeah, I don't care. But yeah, if this is already something that's been discussed, please like let me know, because I haven't seen anything on it and it'd be cool to see. But anyways, yeah, that's my CP-less recognition system. So there's something cool to think about, I guess. Bye.